Hey, this morning on the Y-105FM early morning show, I was talking about the post on Facebook about the attempted abduction at Silver Lake on July 4th and how the police say, we got no police report. She said she called, she didn't call. So it looks like it's a hoax. And I thought, well, that doesn't mean we should ignore it. We can use this as an opportunity to talk about how, you know what, there is sex trafficking going on in our area, and we should be able to watch out for it and know what to look for. So if you think your kid might be involved, you'll know. And, more importantly, what you can do about it. So I got a hold of Stephanie Holt, the director of Mission 21, and I talked to her about this very thing because this is what they deal with every day at Mission 21.
Yes, this is actually something that's happening every day and has been happening for a really long time, and that's why Mission 21 exists, is because the sex trafficking of children is very real in our city and throughout the United States. And so we are here to help those individuals, the youth and the family who have survived sex trafficking in our community.
Well, I think the first thing people would ask is, how can it be happening here?
Right. Well, it looks very different from, I think that a lot of people have the idea that this type of thing happens in other places in third world countries and places that, there's a lot of poverty or desperation. But the reality is that there is a very well-known demand for sex, for paid sex here in Rochester and throughout the state. And whenever there's someone who is willing to pay, there's going to be predators that are preying upon vulnerable people. And unfortunately, our kids, their vulnerability, their biggest vulnerability is their age. And so kids are very trusting, and in America it looks a little bit different than in other countries, but kids are very easily lured on the internet especially, and that's where a lot of the recruitment tactics and the grooming takes place, is online.
Talking with Stephanie Holt, Executive Director of Mission 21 on Y-105FM's Early Morning Show. And Stephanie, Mission 21 exists because of the sex trafficking. What are you doing about it?
So Mission 21, we've been around since 2010, and when we first started, it really was about educating the community. When we came out and said, we need to exist here, we had a lot of people that were very skeptical and, were telling us that we were wasting our time. That does not happen in Rochester, Minnesota. And but we knew at that time we had already met with survivors, adult survivors, who had been trafficked in our city. And so we just had to do a lot of public awareness, and so that's exactly what we did. We set out to, we did a lot of different awareness classes throughout the community to just let people know what this looks like here, what to look for, how to protect their kids. And then after that, we started getting the phone calls from service providers and first responders themselves that now that they knew the signs, they were identifying these kids, sometimes within their own caseloads that they had for a while. So I'm talking about social workers or a therapist or personnel at school that were kind of seeing some red flags and indications that some of the students and youth that they were involved with had some of the red flags that we were talking about. And so then we started doing direct services. So Mission 21, we have an advocacy center here in Rochester, and we run a variety of different supportive services for the youth and the families. So we have a survivor support group that's exclusive to sex trafficked survivors. And then also we do one-on-one mentorship with the survivors. We do emergency intervention services. And we also do something that's very unique in that we have a family support person who actually connects with the parents or siblings and just make sure that they're doing okay after this has happened to someone that they love so much. And in addition to that, we also do some prevention work. So we are diligently always, asking to be a part of conversations at schools, at our public library, at our juvenile detention center, to talk to the kids about that they are vulnerable and what to look for so that they can protect themselves. So we do a at-risk curriculum called Word on the Street, and we offer that. It's free to the public, and we're always available, and we're always willing to, do what it takes to make sure that our kids have the knowledge to stay safe out there.
So what are the signs parents and or teachers and friends and social workers are looking for?
Yeah, so one of the things that traffickers do is very similar to what predators do to groom kids into like sexual abuse. And so it's not like a trafficker or a pimp would say to a kid, hey, I'm a pimp, and now you're going to be a prostitute today. It's a very it's a process that looks the same, and so they might befriend them, whether it's online or in person, where kids usually gather at parks, at malls, and stuff like that. And then they start to have a relationship with them, and it looks a lot like a romantic partner.
This is the Y-105 FM Early Morning Show. My name is James Raby, talking with Stephanie Holt, Executive Director of Mission 21. And we're talking about sex trafficking that does happen in Rochester and how it actually happens. And Stephanie, when you were saying a trafficker grooms their latest victim, it looks a lot like a relationship.
Yeah, so a lot of the victims of sex trafficking would identify their pimp or trafficker at first as a boyfriend. And so what we tell people to look for is, is there that older boyfriend all of a sudden in the picture? And is that kid now, is their attendance in school a factor? Are they being isolated from their friends? Because one of the first things that a trafficker would do is try to isolate them from all of their support systems. And so when the kid is isolated from their support systems, when they lose their friends, when they start to fight with their parents at home and things like that, that trafficker is actually creating a bond with them so that the kid can be dependent on them only. And then they get them to do something that kid thought that they would never be able to do. And whether that's they trick them into doing that, or they physically force them, or emotionally coerce them in some way, threaten them and say, if you don't do this, I'm going to hurt someone you love. There's different ways that kids fall into that, where they do something and then they're so ashamed, or they're so afraid to tell somebody because they're afraid that people won't believe them. Right. And then now everything that the trafficker said, if you say something, no one's going to believe you, or they're going to treat you in this way, is now validated by the way that society and people react to kids and adults alike that disclose being sexually assaulted, abused, or trafficked.
If someone's listening right now and they say, oh my goodness, I recognize someone in that description, what do they do?
There's a couple of different resources here in the city. One of them is, of course, Mission 21, and we work exclusively with youth victims of sex trafficking. But if you're an adult and you need help, surely call us at 507-208-4600, and we will get you to the right resources. Another great resource in town is Victim Services. And Victim Services is very well aware and trained in working with adult victims of sex trafficking. Another thing, too, is, the average age of entry into the sex trade, into prostitution, is 12 to 14 years old. And that's the average age. So we know that there are kids that are even younger than that. But then we also know that there are people that are older. And a lot of people will tell me, well, once that kid turns 18 and they're legally an adult, why don't they just leave? Well, there's a lot of things that we have to take into consideration, whether that kid is now 18 or 20 or 30 or wherever they fall, most likely they have experienced sex trafficking since they were 12 to 14 years old. And this is a very traumatizing experience in their life. And so a lot of our survivors are diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, because not only have they been sexually assaulted, but they've been sexually assaulted by multiple people, multiple times, multiple days of the week. And so it's not as easy as just stepping out. There's also, a fear of retaliation from a trafficker or pimp. It is now a felony. It used to not be years ago to buy or to pay someone to sexually assault a minor. And so now it is automatically a felony if you are caught doing that. And so there's huge risk for these victim survivors to come forward and talk about this. And then also, we work with parents a lot, and a lot of the times parents come to us brokenhearted and they're so desperate. And I think I kind of shared that sentiment with the Facebook user who posted the status of, whether or not some elements of her story were completely accurate or not. I wanted to validate her feelings of distress, I think she mentioned something about feeling very traumatized by the whole thing. And, this is very scary, especially when we think about the kids that we love in our lives and that this is a possibility in our community. But I do want to leave with saying that I do still believe that Rochester is a very safe community compared to other communities that are really combating this issue a lot more than we are. Not to dismiss and not to try to discount the experiences of the or the victims, that have been victimized here, but we do have a great police department who is active in investigating these types of things and have been great allies throughout the years with Mission 21 in finding solutions and better investigating these crimes and taking the victims' experiences into account while they're doing their investigation. So I feel pretty fortunate to be in this community with so much support, not only from our community members who donate and volunteer to our organization, but also to the service providers who are all looking for solutions to make sure our kids are safe.
I am so glad there is a place people can turn, Stephanie. It's Stephanie Holt, Executive Director of Mission 21 in Rochester. You can find out more at mission21mn.org. Thank you also for what you do for the community.
Yeah, thanks, James. Thanks for all you do, too.